she asked me, was I going still to be here when she came down. Do you remember me saying I thought it was a psychopath? Well, it was a medical herbalist of some repute.
Oh, right.
And Cath was staying in a hotel about 7 miles away from here. Although Cath is quite witchy, as am I at times. So those 7 miles stretched several times, stretched and contracted several times.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola, Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm extremely good this week.
I think I am too, actually, but it may be the double. I just had a stonking night's sleep and I just had a massive double latte, and I'm feeling a little bit on fire, to be honest.
Well, I mean, we've been fairly lively the last few weeks, so there you go.
Yeah.
So what's your week been like then?
Well, it's been mostly sunny and involved more weirdo behaviour of having social meetings, outings with human beings. Shall I tell you about them?
Yeah, go on. Go ahead.
So Cath, my client who lives in up north, 200 miles away from me, normally, you'll remember that, well, first of all, she's a big fan of the podcast. Hi, Cath. And loves it and giggles. Loves it, giggles, and sends me messages incessantly all the way through her listening to it and tells me which was our best jokes and all that kind of thing. We'd never met before, although we've worked together on and off for 4 years. And she asked me, was I going still to be here when she came down? Do you remember me saying I thought it was a psychopath? Well, it was a medical herbalist of some repute.
Oh, right.
And Cath was staying in a hotel about 7 miles away from here. Although Cath is quite witchy, as am I at times. So those 7 miles stretched several times, stretched and contracted several times during the evening, which I'll explain to you. I went to meet her in her hotel a couple of hours earlier than we originally suggested, because we were both overexcited about meeting each other, and we had a chat over tea, and then we went out to dinner in a gastropub that she's in that world, so she spent the afternoon asking people locally where should we go for dinner. So we cancelled the reservation we had in the hotel where she was staying, which was probably a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Dull and expensive.
Well, I don't know, actually. I think it probably was neither of those things. I think it was inexpensive and probably adequate, but she'd sourced a better one, and it was well worth the visit. The food was fantastic, but it was in the middle of bloody nowhere. And she was in the passenger seat with my Google Maps app on her lap on my iPad, and she'd managed somehow in this witchiness to turn off the voice of the man. And I like the voice of the man who says, turn left in a quarter of a mile.
Yeah, I like
when you get to the quarter of a mile, he says, turn left. And so you know you're doing the right thing. Yeah. Without his voice on, Cath was just telling me what to do. And somebody had told us, or people had told her, it wasn't very far away. And it kept getting further and further and further away. And we felt like we were driving around in a circle, a bit like a labyrinth. And the roads were getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And that man I told you that cut the hedges, he hadn't been down those roads that week. So, or that month or this year, I don't think. So it felt like we were going deeper and deeper into the sort of mystical forest.
Oh, you might end up in a cottage somewhere.
Well, anyway, I've put here, so, when we came out, there was this wonderful romantic low-lying mist. But as we went there, we thought, where on earth are we going? This can't be right. You know, when you don't trust the map, which mostly I do, because the man says turn left in this confident voice. Anyway, we had such fun, such stories, such giggles, so much in common. I had to slow down the car at one point and go, I'm obsessed with lemon curd, when she was telling me a lemon curd story. We had the same obsession with lemon curd. We had the same stone in the ring we were wearing. We had the same favourite films, the same favourite jokes, the same favourite television programmes. It was like meeting a twin, only she's 20 years younger than me, so she asked me if I would consider myself like her big sister, which was just such an honour. And she gave me a lovely notebook with a pink bird on the front, so she clearly thinks of me as a pink bird, which is quite fair, I think. And the next day she sent me a rave review for the medical herbalist, who you will remember is only 7 miles away from here. So if I'm here much longer, I probably plan to visit the medical herbalist. But I think the story you'll like about the medical herbalist, that she's a genius on social media, Instagram particularly, and stories of her out and about at her allotment and picking the herbs, the ones that she grows herself, and the ones she collects from the wild.
Yes.
So that had brought Cath 200 miles away from her real life to see this person who she felt from the Instagram presence was the right person to come and see.
It only works, people.
I know.
Marketing.
It only works. Yeah. Anyway, so Cath, I know you're listening. I was going to say if you're listening. I know you're listening. Lovely, lovely, lovely time.
Can I just say at one point here that I absolutely love lemon curd too. And out in Greece, there's millions of lemons everywhere. So
at the moment, I am simply obsessed with it because, you know, my little friend Penny, who was my right-hand woman, she gave me a tiny pot on my birthday and I put it in the fridge and I didn't really think much of it. And then I stirred some. Oh, good clue for you, Nicola. Then I stirred some into Greek yogurt. Obsessed with it. I've had a whole pot from Waitrose since, and another one's coming tomorrow. And it won't have escaped your notice that it is not low carb.
No. Quite a lot of sugar, I believe.
I think judicious use probably falls into my 20 grammage, but only judicious use. And it's so delicious. I can't tell you that I'm very judicious with it. Anyway, yesterday I had a lunch with a friend who I haven't seen for a very long time. And she was, they have a sailing boat in Greece and they in the Ionian, and they were on it when she got a phone call to say that her 90-year-old mother had fallen over, broken her hip and been hospitalised. So she was staying in London instead of her more normal Harrogate. Bit of a theme here, isn't there? 2 birds from up north were local enough to me to come and see me. And I can't ever really do meetings until I know whether or not my clients are going to be booked in. And my diary won't let them book in, within 24 hours. But so this meeting was very hastily convened because she has to do hospital every other day with her brother type of thing. But anyway, sunshine, a nice drive. I mean, I'm a woman now who thinks nothing of driving 60 miles to go out to lunch. 7 miles for supper last week, 60 miles for lunch in the sunshine yesterday.
You could even contract that sentence and it would still make sense. I'm a woman now who thinks nothing of going out.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. And, there was a lot of last-minute scrambling to make both of those meetings work, and it did on those occasions. And so they're sort of happy circumstances that were meant to be, I think. So that's my week. I have a mini rant up my sleeve should we run out of things to talk about later. In the unlikely event we have things to run out of to talk about.
Today.
Yeah, you go. You tell me about your week.
Well, I've had a bit of a spooky thing going on.
Oh, so, a bit like me and Cath and the mist.
Oh, it was very spooky. We went to a marketing meeting at Pevco Taverna with Steph and Kate Cocker, who is one of my clients, as you know. Yeah. And Sarah joined us, and we had a lovely lunch. It went on for several hours, and then we went to the beach. But while we were there, we were talking about something. I can't remember what it was at all. I think we strayed off from talking about Kate's marketing to talking about writing generally, content marketing and then writing. And it doesn't take much to get Steph on the topic of writing. And we were talking about, I was saying to her about how much I was really enjoying. My client Jay sent me 4 science fiction books.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying them. I can't work out why. I said, can I read you a little bit or show you a little bit, and you can tell me why they're so good. So I got out this book by Michael Marshall Smith, who I've mentioned before.
Yeah.
And she said, I wonder who his agent is. So I Googled it on the spot, and it turns out he's a very, very big cheese indeed at Curtis Brown, which is one of the biggest literary agents in the world.
Indeed.
And so she said, he'll have armies of gophers and armies of readers before you ever get anywhere near him. So when we went to the beach, I was on the sunbed and I was thinking, oh, Curtis Brown. Okay, let's look him up on Twitter. Let's follow. Oh, he's got a Twitter account. Let's follow him on Twitter. And I was mooching about online, as you do, and I found their website, and then I found their Curtis Brown Creative. And they're running a 7-day Twitter competition of, it was to celebrate their 7th birthday. Anyway, it's really nicely done. Each day, someone from Curtis Brown Creative set a task, a writing task, and they were really good. They were things like, imagine the main character from your novel in a famous painting. Describe how they are feeling, what they can see, what they can feel, what they can smell, what they can touch, etc. And set it in the context of your story. And it was a really lovely,
very good at writing, prompt, isn't it? Yeah.
But you had to do it in the Twitter constraint, so 280 characters.
Oh gosh.
It was great, and there was a 7-day challenge. It was about day 4, so I went back and did day 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the sunbed, and really enjoyed that. Anyway, I carried on mooching on their website. It turned out that they have a 6-month writing course, an online writing course. They've got lots of in-person writing courses, but they had an online one. And then it turned out that they had a scholarship for it as well, the Marion Keyes Scholarship.
Oh, I love her. She's a big fan of Strictly Come Dancing.
Is she? Well, I've read several of her books. I like it.
Oh, I'm not mad on her writing, but I like her. She's fabulous.
Yeah. So I thought, I'm going to apply for that because it starts in September and it goes on till March. And I thought that would be a really good thing to do. A, it'd be a really good thing to do to improve my writing. B, I'd get some really serious critique from, lots of guest authors and agents, including your man. C, you get exposed to the Curtis Brown agent team. And, I just thought that can't be a bad thing anyway. So I thought I've got nothing to lose. So it said all you had to do was submit a synopsis, which is a bit like the back cover blurb, but you tell them the end. You tell them, how the story is structured and everything. And 3,000 words. And Steph had also told me about some writing software. And she said you might want to start compiling your writings into that because it formats it all for you and does it all.
Yeah, what's it called?
Ooh, I knew you were going to ask me that.
No, because she told me about it as well, and I made a note of it, but I've forgotten what she said.
I got a note.
Oh, no, it's Scandinavian, isn't it?
I don't.
I remember looking it up. It's called...
The Novel Factory.
Oh, no, not what she told me about.
The Novel Factory. It's a one-time payment of about $40.
Okay.
And it's really rather nice.
Okay.
It leads you through something that's very similar to the snowflake method. Anyway, I'm getting off the point here. The point is that I've applied for a Curtis Brown writing course. There's only 14 people on the course. You have to be, vetted and everything. So, I was feeling very, very creative.
Okay, I haven't got what's spooky about it yet.
It was just
perfectly normal.
It's just the fact that we were sitting in a taverna having a marketing meeting. I mentioned a book I was enjoying. Steph said that's one of the biggest agents. I followed him on Twitter. I found out that they had a writing course. I did their competition, and it all just got more and more sort of, I don't know, just felt...
Obviously, I've heard of Curtis Brown. I didn't think he was a him. I thought he was a them.
It is a them, but...
Is it named after an original man called Curtis Brown?
No, I don't know.
No.
But
you keep calling him him, and you're throwing me a bit.
Well, okay, that's because the agent who represents Michael Marshall Smith is Johnny Geller, Jonny.
Right, got it. So that's the him you're referring to.
The other agent I'm interested in, I'm interested in them, whether they're interested in me is another matter, is Simon Kavanagh from the MIC Cheetham Agency. I'm not sure if that's Mick Cheetham or whether that's MIC Cheetham Agency.
Okay.
He represents Ian Banks and the estate of.
Okay.
So so it's all very writery, and it was all, and then right. So I was all fired up at that point. It was Saturday afternoon. Somebody shared about a poetry course, how to make a poem. So it was free, and I signed up for that. And I've written 5 or 6 poems and read more poetry in the last week than I've read in my whole 46 years.
Brilliant. That's good. So you're getting very serious about your writing and reading.
It doesn't feel serious.
No. That's good. That's good, actually, isn't it? It's a bit like me saying I don't like the word strategy. As soon as it feels serious, we don't like it very much, do we?
Well, no.
We like it to be light and easy and fun.
No, normally, I prefer things to be serious and intense and focused.
No, that's not what you said last week.
Well, I swing about on that one.
Yeah, you do.
No, this is much more fun. It's like a hobby that's great fun that I'm enjoying enormously.
Do you know, I wonder whether I haven't always felt that about business.
Well, I think you probably have.
Yeah, a hobby that I find enormous fun. Well, I'm wondering whether that isn't absolutely the key, Nicola.
God, how many episodes does it take?
I think it's 185 or something, isn't it? I mean, and I'm wondering if that isn't why it's called Your Business and Your Life. Anyway, clearly, that's something to think about and explore perhaps in another focus of the week. When I'm listening back to this, I will listen to that eureka moment and write it down and turn it into a focus, and we can address it in
we've got a spreadsheet going, so you can
we have. Yes. yeah. Okay.
Good. So what's fueled your fire this week then?
Lots of little worky things. Since I've spoken to you, it was the end of the month, so I did my accounts. It's always a job I love to get ticked off. My low carb clients, one of them is coming. The front runner is coming towards the end of her 3 months, and she's creeping up on 2 stone. Lost. Yeah, I'm in. Well, I'd be sacked if she put it on, wouldn't I?
Well, I didn't know what creeping up on it. I didn't know what that meant at all.
Oh, the scale. Well, creeping down on it probably is a better word then, isn't it? Yeah. Creeping up to a total of 2 stone lost.
Wow.
And I'm inducting my 3 newbies into Small Business Big Magic. They're finding their way into the first drop-in calls, which there are 3 of them. 2 have arrived so far. It's interesting that you've got to download a little bit of software for WebEx, and both of the 2 that have tried to dial in were there before me and waiting for me, so clearly didn't find that a tech bridge too far. I'm trying to record the last few questions of my book into Listen with Judith. I did 41 to 44 last week, 45 to 47 this week. I was going to go for 48 and 49 tomorrow, which leaves 50 to 52 next week, but I actually think I might do 48 to 52 tomorrow if I can. Ticking little jobs off my to-do list, very satisfying. Or it's a silly way to judge a life, but I've also had lots of lovely rest and lovely time too. So end of the month and towards the end of relationships and starting new ones and finishing projects. That's just a normal week in business, really, isn't it? Some new things, some old things, some tidying up, some accounting, just normal, really.
Yeah. Well, this thing that's fueled my fire is probably going to fuel yours as well in future weeks, especially as you're coming to the end of your audio project.
Yep.
It's been on my awareness for a while about these Dr. Echo things, smart speakers basically, and I've also seen and had a lot of fun with one because my American friend Linda has been trying to get it to understand American, and she bought one, and several other people out here are buying Amazon Fire Sticks with Alexa integrated, so you've got a little like walkie-talkie finger thing that you can press and go, Alexa, I want to watch all the films by John Wayne. That's my friend Linda doing it, by the way. So I've been very much aware of this. Gary Vaynerchuk's talking about it a lot. It's going to be huge. It's the one thing, like YouTube is a big search engine, Facebook is a big search engine, Google is a big search engine. Amazon is also a big search engine. They're all databases. And if someone goes to Amazon and has got the ability to search by voice for what they want, then there's got to be a way to find you on Amazon. And, there's nothing on Amazon at the moment that you can put anything on except for Alexa skills. And that is where you can tell your smart speaker, tell me what the weather is, and it will bring up your favorite weather app that you've chosen in advance. And these apps are all called skills on Amazon. So now there's a way to get your business onto Amazon, voice searchable, and delivering audio content. And it's called Alexa Skills.
Okay.
And it's been really interesting. I've had it in my mind. I want to learn how to do that. I want to learn how to do that. I want to learn how to do that. And then, as is the way when you put out the intention, a really good article arrived, and I said I forwarded it to Sarah. I said, "Can we do this?" Because even though that I want to learn how to do this, I obviously know that there is someone better to learn how to do this than me nowadays, and she has made it so. So today, my first Amazon Alexa skill went out, not onto Amazon yet because I'm going to release that when I've done 14. I want 2 weeks worth. So there's going to be a daily Clicks and Leads 365. That's the name of it. Clicks and Leads 365 tip. And in the setting up of it, Sarah has discovered that it can also go on to iTunes as another podcast, YouTube as another playlist, and onto Libsyn as a show. Anyway, it's just marvellous what you can do.
Go the other way round from Libsyn to Amazon Skills.
It does. Well, Libsyn's your host for it. But, the thing is, it's a fantastic, exciting opportunity to get your audio content, which you're so keen on, I know, onto yet another platform. It's, huge.
I was thinking of our audio content, 185 episodes of Own It, the podcast. Can that end?
No, it's the platform is people want quick tips. So I
okay, got you, marvellous.
But you could go back through your 52 questions and create 1 to 3 minute.
Well, today the chances of that happening are between 0 and nil. But let me see how long you guys get into it and enjoy it and stick with it.
Well, I'm determined, because I have watched enough Gary Vaynerchuk talking about it to know that it's going to be absolutely huge. And actually, even the investigating of it has made me want to buy one of these smart speakers. And they're only about 50 quid. The Amazon Echo is only about 50 quid. So it's because voice search is so much more convenient than type search.
What's that tall man called with the glasses, who I find strangely attractive, who does that program every day on BBC called Pointless? Richard Osman, do you know him?
No.
Oh, he's got thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. He's very clever and very funny. And he co-hosts this appalling daytime television program, which millions of people watch. So he's got hundreds and thousands of followers on Twitter. And last week I saw a tweet of his and it said, I have no idea what an Alexa, why anybody would want one. And I'm totally with him. But then he and I are both old fogies in terms of liking old-fashioned things like reading and writing and things like that. But I totally agree with you. I see that shouting at gadgets is the future. I'm not sure it'll ever be mine, but you don't
need to shout.
I don't get it. It's a bit like I never really got. It's not that I don't get them. It's that the previous way. So, for instance, once they invented the remote control, you didn't need legs anymore, and now they've invented an Alexa. You don't need fingers anymore.
Well, see, I totally don't get audio.
I mean, it must be remembered I don't live in the world of the smartphone either.
But I don't get audio, and would never choose to listen to it unless I'm in bed, because I can't do anything else, or cooking, for example. But I do recognise that a third of the world loves it.
Certainly, I recognise that the sexiest thing you've said today is the concept of Amazon as a voice searchable database, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Alexa is coming in new cars. Sarah's just written down a note that Alexa is coming in all the new cars, car audio, in the same way that what was the other thing that I was getting? Podcasts, the podcast apps in cars coming.
It's just the powers that be eavesdropping on us.
Yeah, I know, but if we're marketeers, we've got to get over that, haven't we?
Well, you can get over it. I don't want to. I would rather march in the streets to resist it, because I'm really, don't let's go there. You know me. I'm become a conspiracy theorist and angry beyond belief about almost everything. I had my own Me Too moment yesterday, which is what I'm resisting ranting to you about. Let us go on. Have you finished telling me about what's fueled your fire?
Me Too moment yesterday. Were you molested in it?
No. Time's up. More of a I'm at the end of my tether with shit. Now, let's go on. Have you finished on what's fueled your fire?
Yes, we have.
Yes. Right, move in. Let us move into Focus of the Week. It's from Anon.
They say, when people say get rid of the toxic relationships in your life, what if that person is your brother or your best friend or your sister-in-law? I think that's why she wanted to be Anon.
Well, I've got a funny feeling you and I are going to say the same thing here, aren't we? Well, I think it's a two-step thing. First off, three-step thing, actually. First off, I would attempt, and I'm sure Anon has already attempted this, to say how I feel in a meaningful way. So to ask for the sort of behaviour in the relationship I want. If that doesn't work, and I'm assuming Anon has already exhausted the possibilities for that, but may not have done, because some people just are on the receiving end of toxicity and hate it, but don't know how to verbalise how it makes them feel. But let's imagine you've tried saying, I prefer it if you wouldn't talk like that when I'm here, or I would prefer it if you didn't talk to me like that, and you say it often and you police it. Let's imagine you've exhausted the opportunities for that. The next one is to reduce the number of times you are available to that relationship. So if it is your brother or your best friend or your sister-in-law, you don't get together except when you've absolutely got to. And if that one doesn't work, I would just rid them out of my life.
Let's talk about an example, because I'm finding that just listening to you, I'm thinking a lot of people will be saying, well, I just can't do that. So let's say there's a sister-in-law and let's talk about.
Well, actually, it happened with me and my sister-in-law, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind my telling you this story. She just she thought I did something which offended her, And although I apologised, she didn't speak to me for 5 years. And she's been with my brother and married to my brother for 35 years. So 5 years in our 35 years, she didn't speak to me. And then one day she just woke up and decided either to forgive me or whatever, but she started speaking to me again. And in those 5 years, we were both very miserable and I cried myself to sleep a lot. But I couldn't and didn't rid her from my life because she was married to my brother and she was the mother of my niece and 2 nephews. But my relationship with their family slid from all the liaison being between her and me to it being between my brother and me. And she never, because she is a grown-up, clever, intelligent woman, got in the way of me having a relationship with my brother or her 3 children. She just didn't speak to me for 5 years, and then she decided she could speak to me again. And we haven't discussed, I know what she thinks I did, and I have apologized for it, even though I don't think what I did was wrong. I apologized because it caused her upset. But we've never discussed why one day she woke up and decided that the ban was over and that she would speak to me again.
What did you do at family occasions?
There were fewer of them. That's the point. So yeah, she would wide berth me, and we would be polite to one another.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So imagine that you're in a relationship. You've got a family, and so someone is a racist or homophobe or something like that, and constantly makes references to things that you find offensive. And actually, you could argue that. Actually, it doesn't happen out here. It could happen out here, but I'm very careful to only surround myself with people. And
this is effectively what happened to me on Facebook yesterday that I'm avoiding ranting about. That's why I meant a Me Too moment, because that's what it is. Me Too is not just about being groped. It's about time up on all shitty behaviour one human being to another. So we're talking about racism and homophobia, are we? Or we might be.
Well, we're just talking about, having someone in your family circle, for example, that you have to, and,
Can we ask, can you or me, so it's in your family or my family or Anon's family, can you, me or Anon ask that person to say fewer things like that when we are together?
Well, people just don't care, do they? They carry on behaving as badly as they want to. They don't respond to that kind of
I don't think that's true of all
request.
I don't think that's true of all people. So you're saying the sort of people we're talking about that we would regard as toxics in our lives, maybe that's why they're toxic, because they do carry on behaving like that. They're not responsive to other people's requests. They're not sensitive to other people's feelings about things. Is that what makes it toxic? Is that the definition of toxic, that the other person thinks there's nothing wrong with their behavior? They don't understand the implications it's having on other people, and they're not prepared or willing to change.
Yeah, and that can be negativity about entrepreneurialism. That can be scoffing about social media marketing. It can be anything to do with business. It can be anything to do with
Yes, I'm with you. Hard, very difficult. Let me just. So I've had an experience of this, and you and I also had an experience of this where, I'm a Remainer or a Ramona in the Brexit argument. And in Kent, everybody, to a man, was a Brexiteer. And pretty much down in Somerset, ditto, my cousins and my hostess, they are all Brexiteers. I am the only Ramona. I am alone in a sea of Brexiteers and have been for 18 months, because all of that goes with being metropolitan and Londoner. And they don't want to know, and they're living a completely different life. So basically, we don't discuss it.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens out here. There are 2 people who support Trump.
Yeah.
And we cannot discuss politics at all. And it's a big gang of people. It's about 15 or 16 people. And the jury, because one lady is actually married to the Trump supporter, and she didn't realise that until she got married.
Yes.
And it really upsets her, because she is a very articulate, intelligent liberal.
Yeah, there's that marvellous moment that comes. Did you see it in The Good Fight, where Diane says to Kurt, "I've just got one question before they get back together in their relationship. Did you vote for Trump?" It's her defining question for her marriage. And I don't know, I'm laughing because actually it's not really very funny. It's that serious to some people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So anyway, getting back to toxic relationships. Now, so first of all, you have to think, what defines a toxic relationship? And for me, it's someone who wouldn't take any notice of your polite requests to curb their behaviour. Well,
because there's no respect, is there, for your different opinions?
And so then what do you do?
Then you reduce your exposure to them as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then in the end, you cut them out of your life completely.
Yeah. And there's
there are diminishing levels of their toxicity in your life, and if reducing levels of toxicity is not drastic enough, then it's cold turkey in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I have on several occasions throughout my life just cut contact with people who have upset me, or I don't feel have treated me very well, and it's very rare, Judith. I'm a really, really tolerant person, but when people go too far and it can't be fixed, I will just cut them out.
And I think that's the only way, Nicola.
You don't, we didn't choose our family, but you do choose your friends. And just because people are family doesn't mean you have to spend time with them if they are.
No. And also what is, I think, refreshing often. Now, what was the story I heard yesterday? Yes. When I went out to lunch with this old friend yesterday who clearly had a difficult decade, as have I, one of the stories involved her 90-year-old mother and one of them her 71-year-old husband. And due to various incidences in their mutual life stories, her and her mother, her and her husband, involving, well, I think they were both, there had been times when relationships with her mother and times with her relationships had driven her, with her husband, had driven her to extremists, marriage counselling in the example of her husband. She told me, and this was the point of her story, she said, Judith, people can change. Basically, she was saying her husband had changed and her mother had changed after she had actually instigated divorce proceedings with her husband, and he realised he didn't want that, so he was prepared to make changes to keep her. And when she, I think, had a last straw moment with her mother and left with her son and didn't speak to her mother for about 6 months, but didn't block her mother from having access to her son. So the mother and the grandmother, somebody would deliver or fetch this boy so that he could continue having his relationship with his grandmother. And then eventually 6 months later, my friend's mother phoned, the grandmother phoned, and she had a choice about whether or not to make it up with her mother, and she did. And she told me that both of those people, in advanced stages of life, their behaviour had changed. So people's behaviour can change by circumstances, or if they care about you enough.
Well, I'm not sure that'll make any difference to me, but there you go. Because once I make
no, I don't mean you. I don't mean in the examples you've given. Yeah. But if they're in your family, if it was your mother or your husband, and if you ask them and they don't change or they don't modify their behaviour around you, then I agree with you. You've only got that expel button. But if they listen, and I think that's the thing I love most about my brother, is that he often doesn't agree with me, but he listens out of respect and goes off to find a way to process it in his reality, so that if he can't embrace it, he can more than tolerate it, he can accept it. And I think that's love and respect. And I think the people in our family who we don't choose and they don't choose us, unlike our friends, if they can't demonstrate their love and respect by moderating behaviour or thinking it through, I mean, if we're talking about people just for racism and homophobia, dissing what you do for a living, sneering at social media, I would find all of those terribly difficult.
And let's talk quickly about a work environment, because we are, it's, if you have to work with people who are offensive, or I was listening to something yesterday where they were saying, my business partner is a very negative person. And as I've become more involved, I realised that he is attracting more negativity into our business. And he's also, very scarce financially. So I was listening to this whole conversation with this gentleman and our mutual coach. And he basically said at the end, you don't have to stay in business with these people. If they're prepared to, just because you're in business now, doesn't mean that you can't, find a way out.
No, I agree. And we don't have to stay in relationship with these people either.
Yeah. That's right. So what about a work situation where there's someone in your office?
Well, if it was a job, that wouldn't be allowed. It's against the law.
Well, okay, let's just say they're not racist or homophobic. They're just generally negative, glass half empty kind of people.
Yes, I say I have a friend who's very negative, and I say let's stop this conversation now, because I need to remain positive. Otherwise, I can't do what I have to do in this life.
Yeah.
And I've moved away. I move away from negativity, and it brings me down really badly. So I stop, for instance, rewarding it on social media. Don't give you a like. Don't reward it. Don't reward it. Don't stroke it. Don't buy into it. Don't be goaded by it. I think, again, you've still got to ask. The thing that we've learned to do, because we've done years of therapy and personal development, which is, ask for the behaviour you want. If they can't do that, then ask that there is no discussion of that nature. And if they can't do that, you've got to move away.
Yeah. It was interesting because there were some people out here a little while ago, and I am so surrounded by more evolved people and people who are, aware of their words and, that stuff. And these people came into my life, and I said to Sarah, what is it about them? I cannot put my finger on it, but it's getting like, when you see them, it's like a bucket of cold water being tipped over your head. And it turned out that they actually were constantly looking to blame other people all the time for the things that happened to them.
Yes.
And once we analysed that was what the problem was, we did just gently and naturally,
move away.
Seeing
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
Because they, I didn't care that much about their company that I could be bothered to them to modify their behaviour.
Yeah, but a non's problem is that they're a member of the family.
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, or close. If it's your best friend, I've done it with a best friend. You just remove yourself slightly, and then and habitually, and over a number of years, the best friendness is just a friend.
And I had a long period not talking to my brother because he said some things on social media. He lives on the other side of the world, as you know.
Yeah.
And he said some things in a private message, and I just thought, I can't be doing with this. I really can't.
So actually, if we look at Anon's wording, you've done it with your brother. Yeah. I've done it with my sister-in-law, and I've done it with my best friend. Yeah. So Anon, we've done this between us, so it can be done.
But then what I found with my brother particularly was as the years went past, other people in the family got quite upset that I wasn't in contact with him at all. And then after Steve died, everything just seemed it put things in perspective.
Yeah, silly, isn't it? Scrapping is silly after death, yes.
Yeah, and he had kept reaching out over the years. So the next time he reached out, I was able to
Good on him. Good on him for continuing to reach out. That speaks volumes to me that he's a decent human being.
Yeah, so it was easy then. He used to send presents on birthdays and Christmas, and
yes,
it was easy. He got it right one year. The Christmas after Steve died, he sent a bottle of champagne, and I put it in the fridge, going, "I'm not drinking that. I'm not drinking that." And and then eventually, of course, we ran out of things.
We cracked, yes.
So then I had to thank him effusively for his lovely Christmas.
I tell you what I think maybe might be helpful to Anon is a sort of toxic-ometer. So we can measure things up the scale. On a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, how bad is this?
Yes.
Is there anything can be done that can reduce it to tolerable levels? Am I overreacting, or is this something...
No, that's a word I don't like at all. I don't think anyone overreacts. I think people react according to how the situation is making them feel.
Well, I think I may have overreacted to this man that put me off on Facebook yesterday. I think consideration of it is the important bit. So rather than to respond in the moment, to just buy yourself a breather and some time and think about how far up the toxic scale is this? Logically, not emotionally. And these things are offensive, properly so.
Yeah. Yeah, and often, like you say, a lot of times people just aren't aware of what impact the things they're saying and doing are having. So,
I think it's interesting, isn't it, that somebody who's didactic about their feelings, so let's say in the case of a racist who has no shame in expressing the strength of their, I called it casual sexism in my example, casual racism. Let's say that the toxic person has no. Is not in the. If I was racist, I'd be apologetic about it. But this person, if this racist in our example, has no compunction about expressing their feelings, even no awareness that their feelings, their opinions might upset another person who's quite close to them.
Yeah.
Do you see? So if they don't feel that, why should we feel any compunction about being on the other side of the thoughts, feelings, argument discussion?
This is a good example of what one of your questions in your book, which was about being a nice girl, isn't it? Because they don't want to upset the rest of their family, but they're willing to.
Do you know that's what it is? Do you know that it's that they don't?
No, I don't know that.
No. So it may not be that. It may be that they don't like arguments. They don't. So actually, my friend yesterday said, "Oh, I don't like confrontation." But in the end, when it got bad enough, when the pain was bad enough, she was prepared to stand up to her husband and her mother. And in so doing, she ended up with better relationships with both of them. Now, that's always the hope. But if that isn't the outcome, and actually was the outcome with my sister-in-law, it was the outcome with your brother, those relationships were rescued.
Yes. What we should do is have had stronger boundaries in the first place.
I don't know. I think it's...
yours was a misunderstanding, yeah.
I don't know that it was. She felt very strongly that what I had done was wrong.
I've had things like that happen as well in my life. And I have just had to move away because there's no arguing with it. You can't argue with it if one person...
No, that's right. And so the only apology I could give as a person who didn't think it was wrong was to say, I'm sorry that what I did led to you feeling like that. Yes, because I would never ever have I would never have done it or deliberately done it if I thought it could upset an aunt, let alone my beloved sister-in-law who'd been a feature in my life for 30 years by then.
Yeah.
And also the thought that she could think that I would is part of what upset me.
Yeah, of course. And it still goes on, doesn't it?
Well, the point is it happens. And so all of us better get reasonably good at this or have build up some level of skill in negotiation. And it's, what you always call black and white thinking. I would like a couple of levels of grey first, but, ask for, could you not talk like that while I'm round here? And the person might say, well, I'll talk like that in my home, but when I come to yours, I'll button it, something like that. Then our client has got the choice not to go to their home. Do you see what I mean? There are levels here. We'll do that one first. And if that doesn't work, then we reduce our exposure. We only go to weddings and funerals. Yeah. And the third one is you don't even go to the weddings and the funerals because you can't bear for that person to be in your life.
Very good. Do you think we've done that?
Yeah, I do. But I think we've also illustrated, both of us, keep the door open.
Yeah, and just going back to the thing about if it's at work, I think the thing is to say exactly that, to the person. And if they don't take any notice, then you've got to then talk to your manager, and then it might have to go to human resources.
Yeah, work is easier in a way. If it's self-employed business partners and things like that, I think you've got to find a way of reflecting back to the person what they're saying and how you feel to be in the presence of words like that said out loud or generally held. You've got to agree to disagree for the sake of the business, and if you can't put in protections for both parties, because I think it's a two-sided thing. We're not saying that person's right. We're just saying we don't want to hear their rightness, if that makes sense, because it clashes with our view of what's right. Yeah. You've got to respect the other person a bit, even if you don't agree with anything they say or do ever.
And if you are going to business with people, make sure they've got similar values to you, even if they're perhaps bringing different skills to the table, and that'll make its own awkwardness.
Well, I think people do change. So again, I don't think you can do that. I think you can wake up one day and discover, because people have things happen to them. They have epiphanies which make them change, and people grapple with issues like they say, I've been a liberal all over my life, and I've tried really hard with this one, but I'm X when it comes to this particular issue, and I surprise myself. And then I would have to say, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of people. There are some friends, some very, very close friends of mine who are, one and a half is Jewish, and some other equally close friends where one and a half is German. And occasionally there's war stuff that's difficult. Not about the war particularly, because neither of them are responsible for the behaviours of their parents and grandparents, but a difference of really important opinion based around such things as, say, identity cards, because of what happened to their respective genealogies in different times. And they can't agree, and they're really passionate about it, and estrangements have happened. It happens even amongst incredibly civilized and people who are very good with their words, people who are because most of us aren't as good with words as these two chaps I'm thinking of, both of whom went to the country's finest universities. And I think if you can express how you feel, you're ahead. Most people can't. So you're just dealing in this wallowy, nasty, uncomfy, messy emotion shit all the time, aren't you?
Yeah. That's twice you've said that word. And
yeah, sorry, darling.
The B word.
There's no other word for it, really. Let's move on.
Yes, let's do that. What's your word of the week then?
It's research, and I'll explain why when I get to see who or what's impressed.
Okay. Well, my word of the week is audio marketing with a hyphen. Just so I can slide in under the...
I'm saying nothing.
The word police. And I think that's become obvious why I've chosen that word.
Yes, indeed.
Project updates then.
I'll whiz through mine because we went on a bit over the focus. We didn't expect to, did we? Very little to report this week. May looks like my lowest month yet for book sales, and I'll confess that my focus has been very much elsewhere since the disruption of my move. Specifically, my focus is on where I'm going to live next, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But my 100 words were published and misquoted. You know, I had to write 100 words, and I decided I would be a promo angel. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, well, they were misquoted, but I decided, what's the point? You know, I'm published now amongst 25 movers and shakers in my niche. Who cares? And last week, I told you about Catherine. Well, she's finished the cross-stitch pattern of my 3 quotes in a frame, which I shared in our podcast Facebook group. And I got her she wasn't going to put it in her Etsy shop. I said, I hope you're putting this in your shop so I can share it to social media and feature it in my e-zine. So they're my little project updates.
Very nice. Well, I have done several things. I started my Facebook shop.
Oh, good. Yes. I meant to check that this morning. How did it go?
Well, it took a bit of doing because I couldn't see the word shop on the left-hand side. So I had to Google why it wasn't showing. So I found the answer to that. And the other thing was, obviously, but I don't know why, it rejected the Money Gym book. So I was piling my books in, and it wouldn't take the Money Gym book. It's like you know, that's been banned from everything, and I can't. I'm going to repeal it, I think, but I can't be bothered at the moment. But it was interesting.
I wondered if you could rename it, because actually sometimes battles you get tired of fighting the same battle. Is there another way that we could get that content out without using that title? I'm just not.
Anyway, I'm not bothered at the moment. The other thing I found out in my experiments was that they don't like subscriptions. So obviously you've not got an ongoing subscription button.
No, I haven't. No,
you get people to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm considering not. I don't know. I feel torn on that topic.
Well, maybe you just offer it the non-subscription version in the Facebook shop, and people who only see it in the Facebook shop wouldn't know there was a subscription option unless they went to.
That's a very good idea, Judy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Caller. Yeah.
Okay. And so I've got some of my books up, and I've got a free consultation going to my diary page. So that's there. The other thing I did was I've managed to get Facebook ads rolling again. Can I just say, I won't go into too much detail here, but if you've got a business manager account, go and set up as many accounts within that account as you're allowed to. Even if you call it, you know, your initials 1, your initials 2, your initials 3, and even if you never intend to use all those different accounts, it means that if one of your accounts should get shut down by the automated Facebook ads police, where it's just an algorithm and perhaps so many people have seen your ads, they've started clicking to close them, and you've reached the limit of the closures that you're allowed before your ad account is automatically terminated, it means that you've got lots of other ad accounts you can use, because you can't set up new accounts within your business manager after you've had one close.
Oh, nice tip, Nicola. Very nice tip. Yeah. And how many...
I think you're allowed about 40.
I didn't mean that. It was the other one. No. How many people closing your ad because they don't want to see it again? Are you allowed?
Nobody knows.
No. Okay.
But it's something that triggers account closures. But what I didn't realise was you can have lots of different accounts within your business manager. Of course you can. It's obvious because if you're managing clients' accounts, you'd need lots of clients' accounts. But anyway, just go and set them up so that you've got them there as
just in case. As my dad would say, you won't need them if you've made provision for them.
Yeah, probably. And the other thing to remember is that you need to go and each account will have a different pixel. So you will be starting from scratch with a new pixel, but it's better than not being able to run ads at all.
How many have you set up, just out of interest?
Well, I've done about 10.
Yeah, that's plenty.
And funnily enough, Sarah realised that the old account, I've not using the old business manager, but she realised I actually had 2 spare accounts already set up in there that I could have been using.
Okay.
But to be honest, it doesn't make any difference, because you have to swap to a different pixel, you have to create new audiences, you have to create new lookalikes, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Right, the final thing on my projects this week is I have put choosers on my website. Finally got around to doing this. When people first arrive at the website, they see 3 statements that sum up the 3 different kinds of visitors I get to my website, and they click a chooser to go into an email follow-up sequence based on what they chose.
Okay, and what are your 3 choosers? What are your 3 things?
So one of my choosers is, I want to get started online, but I don't have a product or service. So in that case, I send them into the affiliate marketing sequence and eventually refer them on to someone else who I make an affiliate income from. The second one is I have a great product or service and I want to market it better online. So that's the DIY merchants. These are the people I'm most interested in working with. And so they go into the Be Everywhere Online sequence. And then the last one is I already have a great business. I'm looking for a marketing partner, which is where someone wants a consultation or ongoing consultancy.
Okay.
I'm definitely moving away from done for you again. Okay, and so that's good. That's on both the sites. The sites are starting to look similar now. Yeah, I've only got two. I'm getting much more focused. So that's what I've been doing this week.
Who or what has impressed you?
Well, two things that I've come across. The first one is that where the poetry course is, Make a Poem, is on futurelearn.com. And that seems to be linked somehow to the Open University, or perhaps it's what the Open University is called nowadays. The poetry course is through the University of Manchester, and it's the software that it's on is really good fun. It's slightly gamified, so you can see where you are as you move through the course. And I've been very impressed with the tech of it all. And the other thing that I'm interested in, I was very impressed with, was I went looking, because I don't have a smart speaker, so I went looking to see if you could get an app that acts like Alexa, and I found a thing called EchoSim, ECHOSIM.io, which is a website that behaves like Alexa, or it behaves like a smart speaker. You can actually press a button, speaking to it like saying, Alexa, tell me the weather in Stupa, and it will behave.
You press your button on your EchoSim app.
No, it's not an app. It's a web page.
Oh, okay. So you've got to open up the web page on your smartphone.
No, you open it on. Well, you can open it on your iPad or your laptop.
Yeah,
and it will act like Alexa does.
Okay.
So you can start trying out. The other thing I found is that skills are not transferable country to country. So I can't listen to Gary Vaynerchuk's skills because they're only in America. Or even though I have
that surely must be for now, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's got to be coming, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, Gary Vaynerchuk would have his skills on the UK Alexa already. Yeah. There's several unofficial ones, but they're not his official ones, and I'm sure he would have done it.
But I mean, for Gary, America is a far big enough audience for him, and for you, the UK is a far big enough audience.
I know, but he is going big into the Far East. He's in Helsinki this week. He's really.
Yes, he'll probably have to set it up from those countries locally, won't he?
Well, he'll either have to do that, or they will open it up. Yeah. But it's not. If you're wondering what the point of Alexa is, this website will give you a little play. And the other thing, just to close on this voice search thing, is if we want people to be able to speak into Alexa and say, play the Own It podcast, and it will be able to do that. It searches the web as well as Alexa itself. Mm. So, what about you then?
Mine's about me. It begins, I amaze myself sometimes. So my word of the week was research. And I amaze myself sometimes because, like you, I'm so fast start, which often leads to ill thought out goings on. Yes. And so my favourite example is, when we asked for a balcony in our hotel room, we forgot to ask if there was a view of the sea, if they gave us one of the car park, that sort of thing. And you're reminded, aren't you, what you forgot to ask?
Yeah.
And I've discovered something which the cynical will understand so much better than me. So one of my favourite games and obsessions right now is Rightmove. Where am I going to live next? Will I rent? Will I buy? It's absolutely my favourite game. And I have a short list of rentals and a short list of sales opportunities for my next home. And the first example I found of this was an exquisite little rental bungalow in a beautiful location. It was very affordable, overlooking the Thames. I'd no idea what prompted me to see what was also for sale in the same location. But when I did that, I discovered that the bungalow backed onto a plot of land which was up for sale at 1.3 million, with planning permission for a massive mansion on it, which must surely take at least a year to build, presumably the entirety of a year-long tenancy as a renter. And I wasn't sure whether, and I'm going to put this to the test when it comes to it, I'm not sure whether the landlord or the agent would feel honour bound to tell me that if I were to go for that house. And I might. And presumably, if they don't say anything, I could stipulate that I would need to be released from my tenancy if it proved to be unbearable. And if they wouldn't give me that, then I wouldn't take it. But, as Sarah's video made clear earlier in the week, noise is an awful torture. And worse than that, all my work is on the computer talking to people. So not just you, but my clients as well. And we've tried to but also I just couldn't live with it. I lived in Canary Wharf in 98 when I was 20 years younger, and I was only 43, and every morning I would wake up at 8 o'clock, including on Saturdays, and the banging would begin. But they were building a new neighbourhood, and that made total sense, and it was just about bearable. It would certainly not be bearable now to live next door to a building site for a year while they built this enormous mansion. But what this has done, the point of this story is it's made me do both now. So when I put a house I might buy on the list, I then go and research things. And let me tell you what I've discovered. A village with a population of 643 people had recently enjoyed a party where one guest was murdered and another shot in the legs.
Oh, my God.
And I don't know about you, but I don't think I really want to live in a village where they have parties like that, especially if the population is only 600 people. I mean, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Well, unless those people, it was an Airbnb and those people came.
No, I don't think it was. I think it was probably a sort of stick-it-up-your-nose DJ type of a party. But anyway, and a third property is in a village where the local council has stolen a large chunk of greenbelt land and given permission to a builder to build 510 houses, which would increase the population of the village by 1/3. And if I thought the first building project would take a long time, how long does it take to build 510 houses?
God, don't get Irene started on them.
Well, and also, wait for this. It included in the planning permission, and I quote, were, 100 pitches for gypsies and travelling showmen. Now, leaving aside whatever I might feel about gypsies and travelling showmen, in this, well, apart from the fact that it reminds me of that Cher song, do you remember Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves? Not that they are necessarily, but you know what I mean. What's worse is that the NIMBYs of the village are up in arms complaining all over the internet, with a horrible vibe which to move into, despite the house being beautiful and available not just to rent but also to buy. You just don't want to live there's a toxic environment where half of the people delighted that the village is going to grow, and the other half are just moaning for months or years so that it doesn't happen. It's a horrible sort of conflicted vibe. But the point of this story is it's most unlike me to do any research of this nature at all. But I'm discovering when I do it how complex life is.
Or how complex life could be if one carried on.
Well, it's more that there's nowhere to live where this sort of, not in the UK, small overcrowded island, there's nowhere in the UK where this sort of thing isn't going on. Planning permission, the stealing greenbelt land, big building projects in the background, and we laugh, don't we, when your RAF, your Greek Air Force jets go over. Yeah. And living where I'm living now, that happens here quite a lot as well, because there's a big military presence down in the West Country, which I like, actually, because it feels like being back on the base when I was a child. But the point of this story is who or what's impressed you? Me, doing some research, and I'm amazed that what's coming out is quite shocking. And normally I would have bought the house, moved in and go, oh,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyway,
miserable for a month, and then picked yourself up and carried on.
Well, longer than that, actually. In the case of building project for 510 houses, I'd be a bit miserable for the first 5 years of living there, and probably forever. And then, of course, it's blighted because you can't sell it because nobody else wants to live in an overcrowded place.
Talking of Sarah's video, where she just demonstrated how loud it actually was, it was not next door. They finished their bathroom project. It was 2 doors down.
Oh, my God.
I woke up thinking that my fan was about to land on my head in my bedroom because it was so loud. I couldn't believe that it wasn't in our house.
Well, it's funny because next door here are building a conservatory, and the day the building work started, the foreman came round with his business card and said, here's my card, here's who to complain to if anything happens. Well, yesterday, 2 men came to my front door, both with something conservatories written on their chest. The first one said, are you Mrs. I couldn't understand what he said. Are you Mrs. Ouch? Do you have a conservatory? No, next door. Later in the day, another man came with this conservatory badge on his chest, and I was just about to send him next door when I realised that actually my hostess had invited him to come round to unlock the bathroom window. So it's like I was besieged by conservatory goings on yesterday. And Richard, our cartoonist, always says, "Oh yes, no sooner does summer start than we open the windows and the next door neighbour lights up their power tools and starts, DIY building conservatories and improving their property. I suppose that's what happens.
I wonder how Richard feels about being described as our cartoonist.
Well, he is my cartoonist because, of course, I'm one of his Patreons.
That's right, yes.
Richard, you are my personal cartoonist. I think he knows that already.
Bless him. Lovely. All right, well, on that note, we'll end the show, and I'll see you again next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
How do they do it? Not a care.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.